Hi, and welcome to the National New Teacher Support Podcast brought to you by New Teacher University. And I'm your host, Dr. Terry Ross. Our mission at New Teacher University is to make sure that new teachers' first years are their best years and that they are foundational for a great career. We want to make sure that you start out with the foundation so that as you matriculate through your career, you will have something to fall back on, something to look back on, and a solid foundation of strategies to help you impact the children that you serve. Today, we're very excited to have an award winning teacher, administrator, a former athletic coach, Dr. Kelvin Smith, with us, and he's going to share with us some strategies around positive behavior and intervention supports. He's going to talk with us about classroom management and things that new teachers can do to ensure that they build those relationships with their students and build trust. We know that building trust with students will last a lifetime. So, Dr. Smith, introduce yourself and tell us who you are and how did you get an education?
Good morning. My name is Dr. Kelvin Smith. I have been in education for 20 years. I went to Alabama A&M University from 96 to 2000. I earned a telecommunications and minor in marketing, but I didn't go in my field just like so many other people. I have family members who grew up educators. I have retired principals and teachers that basically strongly encouraged me to go into that field. I try to still steer clear from it, but the Lord's will and divine measures and acts. I had a plan B. I've worked as a full-time sub at an alternative school. Was approached by several people from the board and the principal at that time and encouraged me to go back and get my alternative teacher certificate, which I did in English. After I received it in English, I basically spent 12 years in Alabama, mostly in the Birmingham area, where I taught and coached football, basketball, track, softball, and I was an English teacher. For most of the schools I've been at, I've always been that person that was looked upon as the person that try to make a bridge and connect the bridge between different grade levels. For the last 8 years, I've been in the state of Georgia, Columbus, Georgia. I am currently in my fourth year as administrator. I'm the assistant principal at Hardaway High School in Columbus, Georgia, where I am the disciplinarian principal, as well as I'm the PBIS coach, tier 2 coordinator, and basically help out in anything dealing with academics in the campus. So that's basically me in a nutshell right now for 20 years.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for choosing education. A lot of people did major in education and they found their way to education because of their connection with family or some teacher that they knew. And that's always exciting because we will end up where we're supposed to be. I started out majoring in criminal justice through a lot of thought, a lot of prayer, almost dropping out of school. I said, you know what? I want to work with the children before we even get to that point. Maybe I can have a greater impact on this side. And then that's when I changed my major to special education. So I want to thank you for choosing education. And I want to thank you for being a teacher because representation matters. And we do not have many Black men in education. And for you to be an English teacher, that was really awesome because being able to master the language is so
Right.
important to access. And if our children, in order to have access, you have to speak the language of whatever craft you want to be. So thank you so much for you choosing education and for the impact that you've had with our children. So today you're going to talk with us about PBIS. What is PBIS?
PBIS is Positive Behavior Intervention Support. Right now, PBIS is being used in most schools throughout the U.S. Um, Not so necessarily for a Title I school, but for any school, just to build support. PBIS main focus is to make a campus and make the teachers and students learn how to be respectful, resourceful, and to be safe. So right now, PBIS is growing in different schools all around. For the last 8 years since I came over to Georgia, I've basically been in some type of role dealing with PBIS for these 8 wonderful years here in the state. The more I grew in that ranking, the more I understand. Depending on the size of the school, depending on the resources you have, PBIS can be greatly beneficial, especially for a first year teacher. First year teachers have so much on their plate trying to adjust to being in the classroom, trying to adjust to lesson plans, trying to adjust to classroom management, trying to adjust to identifying and understanding the culture of their students. My main suggestion to most first-year teachers, lean hard on a mentor. Usually we'll give you a mentor. As administrators, we try our best to give you one of the strongest mentors in that department that you're in. If we can't mentor you and match you up with one in that department, we try to mentor you and give you a mentor that can definitely assist you and show you the strengths of navigating through your first year, because the first 3 years are very critical for any new teacher. Those are the deciding factors that they are going to continue on the education field or decide, well, this may not be for me. Classroom management is very essential for a first year teacher. That creates and builds the building blocks. And that also coincides and works with PBIS, because with a great foundation with classroom management, you set the tone in your class to where your students understand your expectations in the classroom. They understand your guidelines as a teacher, and you help set up the structure of what you need to do as a teacher, instruction wise, and what they need to do as from a student angle in receiving that instruction and how to behave. Now, no school is perfect, no classroom will be perfect, but you still learn how to adjust using PBIS in that aspect. Um, the next thing for a new teacher that you need to understand is also learning the culture of your students. You may not have the same background or had the same background growing up for most of your students. You have to be willing to open up and learn something about them. Most kids don't have the traditional background as they used to have a mom and dad. Some just have a mom, some just have a dad, some live with grandmother, some even come from a group home. But the quicker you learn about those students, you kind of can figure out a way to talk to them, because communication is key, not only just to parents, but knowing how to communicate with your kids and knowing that when they finally trust you and see that you are there for them, they open up a little bit more to you and they try to do their best for you throughout the year. Those are the kids that make the biggest impact when they know their teacher actually truly cares about them. That goes a long way.
Absolutely. Everyone wants to know that they matter. They want to know that they're seen. And one of the biggest things that you can do is build relationships. I'm so excited that you talked about getting to know your students, because so often we come into the school year, and I know new teachers, they hear from the principals and they hear from the new teacher orientation about the curriculum and the standards and all of that. None of that will move forward if you don't stop and get to know your students. So it's taking time to get to know your students, to build that relationship, and you can do it while you're teaching. So when new teachers go in the classroom, what do you think one of the first things they should do to try to build relationships and build trust with their students?
Icebreakers work. Don't do the typical icebreakers trying to find out what they did for the summer. Many of them don't want to really share that much information because, again, if you don't know their background, someone may have had to stay home and babysit their brothers and sisters all summer. Some of them may not really ate that much over the summer. So they may not want to really share the aspect of a true icebreaker, what I did for the summer when you start a new year. But what you want to do is try to do something as simple as a short questionnaire. What's your favorite nickname you'd like to be referred to? Tell me two characteristics about you that makes you unique. Give me your goal in life that you want to. And also, these same questions that you share with them, you go over those same questions about yourself. Give a little bit of information about where you came from, what school you may have graduated from, something so they know that you are more so a person than necessarily their teacher. They know you're their teacher, but give them some like insight about you so they know something. That goes a long way. So that means you shared something about yourself the same way you want them to share something to you. Even if they don't answer all the questions to you, you may still have someone that's a little nervous. As long as they wrote it down, as long as they journaled it, you can read back over it a little bit later and then still get a better insight moving forward later on the year. Because you will have some students that are a little shy. They don't want to speak and share that much about you. But as long as they wrote something, you can read about it. And then even like a nickname, if you start learning how to just use their nickname, if they like the nickname more than their biological name, use their nickname. The fact that you even remembered it and you was able to use it towards them, that goes a long way with them as well.
Absolutely. And the title of this intervention is called positive behavior intervention support. Where does the positive come in?
The positive comes in based off what the teachers in the school, because anytime you're using PBIS, The PBIS team usually works in conjunction with the leadership team and the admin team to discuss the ways that we want the school to approach everything dealing with the student population. One, we want to recognize our students. We want to make sure they understand that you're just not here for education, but we want to be able to recognize all the beautiful things that you are doing for the school. You recognizing the school, but recognizing the school in such a way to where the kids know they are important. They know their worth. They're just not there just to be in school. Um, Different schools use different ways for PBIS. They use reward points where we may see a student do something nice for another student, and we may reward them PBIS points. And maybe before the 9 weeks is over with, we let them take all those PBIS points they earn and go purchase some out of a PBIS store. Some schools even send on cards that shows positive reinforcement. Those are the things that we need to see when we're using PBIS. What type of reinforcement are we using to and ensure that our students understand that positiveness behavior goes a long way. PBIS is also used to try to help keep an eye on the at-risk students, try to help them move away from being tiered, being at risk. Also looking at PBIS, it also helps looking at the data to help target students that may be struggling academically. That could be a reason why they are disciplined behaviors or at-risk students in the class. What things can we do to try to encourage them? Sometimes it's good to encourage little Johnny that may normally be known for doing disruptive things. If you see him do something right, even the smallest thing, if you saw him take his hood off, pull him to the side and give him positive praise, man, I appreciate that you took your hoodie off when I asked you. Thank you
Yes.
for doing this. Please continue doing right for the rest of the day so I can see you be a better person. And those little things that all build into PBIS kind of help expand the expectations of the school, the expectation of the classroom, expectations of the teachers moving forward with the students will go a long way throughout the course of the year.
And thank you for elevating that. And thank you for elevating what positive meant in there, because in the old model of discipline, you waited for someone to do something wrong and that's what you dealt with. So the children who were doing all of the things in school that kept them in trouble, they were the popular kids. But under
Right.
this model, the students who are doing what they're supposed to do, we're recognizing what we want and then we get more of it. It's just like in life. If we focus on the good, we'll get more good. But if we focus on the bad, we'll get more bad. So thank you.
Right.
And when you talked about the importance of classroom management with this positiveness piece, new teachers, I don't think they are prepared for the level of classroom management that they have to have, because they're not prepared for the level of classroom management. What we have is when they walk through the classroom, your students need to know how to walk in your classroom. What do they do once they get in there? How do they sharpen their pencil? How do they get their books out? How do they just everything about your classroom students need to know? What would you tell new teachers to help them prepare for the level of management that they have to have in their classroom in order for it to be successful?
I'll say for most new teachers, especially new teachers at a new school, start off by signing desks, signing seats. That helps you out, one, to learn the student, two, to get a gauge on what you have structure-wise. Because if putting them in alphabetical order and you notice that you have a couple students that don't need to sit by each other, then you can start rearranging the classroom that way. Also putting out the ideal of this is my classroom, this is my expectation, but also giving the class at least one rule that they can come to terms on as a class, so they know that they also added in on the classroom rules. That means they're accountable. That's one thing about PBIS that works with it too, making sure the kids are accountable in their behaviors moving forward. That helps with classroom management as well. So with new teachers looking at keeping classroom management together, ideal of the structure of the classroom setting, the idea of keeping up with the culture of your students, and having the idea of trying to relate to them in a way that best fits for you. So all models are good, but what a 19-year veteran may do may not always work for a first-year veteran or a new veteran.
Absolutely.
So you got to be able to be mindful of looking when you monitor somebody, or you go and we do suggest go sit in on another teacher's class when you're on your prep period. So you kind of get an idea of how they operate. But also,
Yes.
don't necessarily just take that teacher's whole situation, because again, they had multiple years to get used to this. Those students know and respect. You got to build that criteria from the ground up of getting that respect building up to the expectations, making sure you understand, your students understand, this is what you expect for them to do coming in. So you can take pieces of what you saw and implement it into your role. If you try to take someone else's whole situation, it may not work for you. And it'll make you struggle because you don't know how to adjust to it. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Don't be afraid of mistakes happen. Everything does not go correct in the first year. You will have
Absolutely.
things that will go wrong. You have things go off the rail. Just be prepared to get it back on the rail so you can keep
Absolutely.
moving forward and just don't give up.
Don't
There's nothing
remain
wrong,
derailed by it.
right. There's nothing wrong with venting. Find someone to vent to. Find someone to talk it out. Those are good things. I'm always been an administrator with my new teachers, first year teachers. If you're mad about something, come talk to me in your prep period, vent it all out. Because once you get the venting, that gives us opportunity to probably talk out a possible solution to whatever situation went on in that classroom for that day. If it's a difficult class period, a different class, a different student, we can come with a game plan. Classroom management also goes to communication with parents. You
Mhm.
need to have a good communication piece with the parents, from talking, emailing, things of that nature. Not only calling when little Johnny does wrong, but give a positive call as well. That's what PBIS plays in for, because that goes a long way. Some parents, if you look at the culture of the kid, those parents may have not graduated from high school. So their outlook on high school or school in general may be negative. You got to try to put something positive in them so they can also support you from their end at home positively to make sure their kid do right in your classroom. All those plays a big factor.
Thank you so much for elevating that call home to parents and getting to know the parents, because so often I'll ask new teachers, have you talked to the parent? Not yet. That's because some teachers allow the students to represent the parent, and they feel like, well, he's doing this, so maybe there's no one at home that cares. And sometimes students have said, you can call, but that's their bluff. Please make
Right,
that phone call, because it is a village. You talked about the village earlier. It takes that village even in high school, even in middle school. So often we kind of let the students drift away once they get to high school. They need more parental support in high school because they have more access to things that they can get into.
right.
So thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing that. And it was another thing that you talked about with the behavior management piece with new teachers, and that's going to a veteran teacher's classroom during your planning period. When I was a new teacher, I can remember visiting the greats like Coach Samuels at Parker High School, Miss Jackie Rice, Miss Hill, who was an English teacher, because my background was special ed, and basically what I had to teach English and math. So I was teaching
Right.
algebra and geometry, and I was teaching English 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I would go and sit in these teachers' classrooms during the planning period and watch their lessons and watch their style. And I blended all of those with what I already knew to come up with what I had. So, new teachers, it's important for you not to just wait for a mentor to come to you, but you seek out people. And you also talked about having a place to vent. New teachers, if you vent with someone and once you finish venting, they add on to it with what else is wrong, that's not the person to vent to.
Right.
Vent to someone who has a solution mindset, someone who's going to be positive, and someone who's going to give you some strategies to walk away with. It's easy to go in the teacher's lounge and find people who will sit there and just talk about what's going wrong. Find people that's talking about what's going right, because that's what's going to help you get to the next level. So you
I
talked
totally agree.
about calling home to parents. You talked about doing assessments and building relationships and having them answer questionnaires so that you can get to know them. What other strategy would you give to a new teacher to help them build their positive behavior system in their classroom?
I definitely would try to, anytime they have like a mentor mentee meeting, try to ask other teachers what were some of the things they did within the last couple of years, especially with the grade level they're teaching. Some of those teachers may know those students. Reach out to other teachers and see if they may know that particular kid and know what kind of things they did to be successful with their kid moving forward. You also want to try to reach out to your administrators. We are your biggest support. So anytime that you have any issues, come talk to administrators as well, so we can kind of help direct you. If you feel like your classroom management is not strong enough, go get your PL, professional learning. We'll definitely sign you up to go get additional professional development. Be mindful and open to go to those things, because It's not just to send you there, just to give you a break from your class or a break from the day. We want you to learn from it so you can utilize that information back into your classroom. Whenever someone observes you, always ask for feedback. If they haven't gave it to you by a certain time, normally most administrators, they observe your class, they give you feedback probably within that week. If you haven't got any feedback by the end of that week, ask for feedback. Try to learn from your feedback so you go from it. Nothing wrong with asking. Ask questions all the time. That's the main thing that helps grow as a new teacher. Asking questions from someone with veteran knowledge, veteran experience. If you have a co-teacher with you and they are an experienced co-teacher, piggyback off them and try to learn as much as possible to help you grow as a new teacher. These are things that's going to make your first year be very successful.
Absolutely. Being open, being a learner, because we know that most new teachers, well, not most, 10% of new teachers leave the profession within their first year, and about 44% leave within their first 3 years. And we want to make sure that teachers know and understand that they have a support in the building, that the administrators are not there as a got you, that we're there as a support system, and that you
Right.
seek those veteran people. So if you can, what are some of the benefits of having PBIS school wide, and what are the benefits of that new teacher understanding the school wide system of PBIS?
Well, having PBIS school wide works in various aspects because, again, we're utilizing PBIS to not only highlight the students, but also the teachers.
Yes.
PBIS school wide, like for most schools, they acknowledge a teacher and a student daily. We allow like the school I'm currently at, we allow the kids and the students and teachers to highlight a kid, just make random suggestions of a kid for this day, student teacher for this day, just to let them know we appreciate what's going on in the building, education wise and as a student. PBIS school wide also is beneficial because you can look at things such as 9 weeks recognition. If you say, okay, any student that had 0 referrals this 9 weeks, you guys will get a pizza party at the end of this time. So that's letting all the kids know, okay, if I do right, my school is going to acknowledge me in some shape, form, or fashion. But it also go in the classroom. If a teacher says, okay, everybody that didn't receive an F for this 9 weeks, this is what we're going to do for the class as a whole. This is what I'm going to try to do, call home to your parents as a whole. But also with the kids that didn't make it that first time, school-wide PBIS also has a structure to where you go back and talk to them and let them know, okay, this is a brand new 9 weeks. Everything starts over. The one thing that I did when I was a teacher that I passed on to a lot of new teachers, I would tell them whenever I start a new year off, the kids walking in, after I introduce myself, go over the classroom rules, give them a chance to have an icebreaker with me and give them a chance to make a rule as a class that we all agreed on. I told everybody, starting day one, everybody has 100 in my classroom. Now it's up on to you to keep it.
Yes.
And every time we had assignment, homework assignment, daily assignment, test or quiz, I always tell them, once the grades get back to them, take that grade and add it to that 100 you had on the first day. That lets you know where you stand at right now. Most kids were shocked. They always like, so I got an A right now. Yes, the report cards went out on day one, you will have an A. But that's not how school works. So we got 9 weeks to maintain that 100. But right now, everybody has 100. And I want to see what can you do that can make you maintain that grade. Of course, many of them never going to maintain 100, but I still gave them the goal set of they may have never heard themselves may never say, oh, I got an A in this class for right now.
Yes.
What can I do to maintain it? And in many cases, kids that normally would not do well in my English or in English in general, they made a stride to do something better than they normally would do. So by the end of the school year, they may have passed me with like a C or B, and they would tell me, normally I failed the class, got to go to summer school.
Yes.
That's a part of PBIS, being able to reach out to those kids, especially school wide, and making sure that all teachers are on the same page. This is what we're echoing. And as long as everybody do the same buy-in, what the echo to the students, that we all have the same expectation in each class for your grades, for you as a person moving forward, that plays a big part. So anytime we do any type of recognition, kids know, well, if we're doing a PBIS recognition event, I know I had to maintain something, discipline-wise, attendance-wise, grade-wise, to be able to be allowed to go to this. And once they realize that we all have the same expectations set, then they understand, well, I got to get on board to do this and do right. So I don't be that kid left out, having to stay in the classroom with this teacher when everybody else get to go do X, Y, and Z for that PBIS event.
Thank you for that, because Daniel Coyle is an author, and he stated that you have to give children something to stare at and something to reach for. And by you having those expectations out there school wide, and you mentioned how it's the same way throughout the building from classroom to classroom. Now, some teachers may have their rules a little, but the overall structure, it's for the cafeteria, the hallways, how we conduct ourselves in the restroom, the auditorium, during arrival, during dismissal. All of that is the same school wide, and it does build some consistency. And you're giving those children something to stare at because they know
Right.
what the rules are. They've had a voice in the rules, and having a voice is so important. And then you're giving them something to reach for when you add those rewards out there. So thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with new teachers about classroom management? And I like using the word classroom management because this morning we have not used the word discipline, because we're
Right.
not here to discipline students as much as we're here to develop students. And we want to make sure that people understand, and that teachers understand, and parents and everyone know that our children are being developed. And development is not an event where you have this one event and now they're ready. It's a process. We may have to go over that rule several times
Right.
before we begin to just uh, uh, use it as a punishment. We never want to use it as a punishment, but before we begin to enforce it, we may have to practice the rule a number of times. One of the things I tell new teachers is that when you first start having students come to your classroom and sit down, if they're not coming in and following the process for coming in, putting their books away and have a seat, you say, everyone, let's stand up, let's go back in the hall. Let's try this
Right.
again. And you do that until they get it, because you're sharing that expectation with them, and you're showing them and modeling, this is how it is, and this is how we enter the classroom. One of the things that I kind of push back on is that a lot of people have zero noise level. As humans, we are social.
Right.
And that zero noise level is an expectation that you're almost putting yourself in a spot that you can't enforce it. I
Right.
don't want to be in a school that when students are changing class, there's zero noise level in the hall. I want to be in a school that when they're changing class, it's almost like I'm walking through a mall and you have people walking in there having conversation, but it's their conversation and everyone can't hear it. And I think that's what school is for our children, that we're developing them for the real world, so we should have rules and expectations that's going to model what's in the world.
Right. I totally agree. Um, One thing that I do definitely stress with a lot of new teachers, they see it on their yearly evaluations and their standards. Make your classroom inviting.
Yes.
Make your classroom to where the students feel at home. So do something and create your classroom in a way to where they want to come in and they have the sense to learn. They want to
Yes.
come in and they want to enjoy the moment they walk into your room. Because the more you make your room inviting, the more you make your room feel at home, the more you make your room feel safe, the easier it is for them to come into that classroom, want to make sure they're in there and they want to enjoy that time of education you're giving them. Because depending on the class schedule, you may be on a block, you may be on a period. You want to make sure that you are utilizing that time, because the teacher's going to hear their administrator say bell to bell instruction. You
Yes.
want to make it not feel like and so focus on that bell to bell statement,
Mhm.
but you want to make it feel like the moment they come in, the time almost just goes away. And before you know it, the bell rings, it's time for them to go. The more you have it in a structure with your classroom management that folds in with the warm feeling of the classroom piece, the fact that you know and you display the learning of their culture and learning of that person, and as long as you're showing that support PBIS related wise, you will have a successful year as a new teacher, no matter what.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, because, and all of that goes back to what you said in the beginning, building relationships. When students know that you know them and that you care about them, in the beginning, they feel like they're working for you. And that's what we want. We want them to feel like they're working for us. But as that year progresses, we want to release that to them and let them know everything that you're doing in here is for you and is for your future. So thank you so much, Dr. Smith, for joining us today on the National New Teacher Support Podcast, brought to you by New Teacher University. University. Do you have any parting words that you just like to say to encourage new teachers to stay in and just keep coming back?
For my new teachers, just remember, every day is a new day for adventure, for motivation, for success. Your goal is to be better than you was the day before, so your students can be better the next day after.
That was very profound, Dr. Smith. I appreciate that. Every day is a new day. So, new teachers, you know that it doesn't matter how the day ended yesterday. You leave it in yesterday and come back to today with the renewed mindset, refreshed and ready to start over. Because on your worst day, our children still need you, and for some of them, you're still the best hope. Thank you so much again for joining us on the National New Teacher Support Podcast, brought to you by New Teacher University. And I'm your host, Dr. Terry Ross.